Okay. Hi, this is Elliot Fishman, and welcome to Wednesday. It's our Facebook Live time, 12 o'clock, and I'd like to welcome everybody. And this is our pre-RSNA pre-meeting, so we will be back one more time before RSNA, which will be pre-Thanksgiving. So I want to thank everybody for being here. And today we have a special guest. I said we'd have a special guest, and today we have Marty Bledsoe. And Marty's been the head administrator for radiology for the past almost 2 decades. Marty, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
And I just wanted to, one of the things we start with RSNA, it's always a good look at where things are changing in radiology. One of the reasons we all go to radiology is to see what's the latest and greatest. And I think we all know radiology is changing, and we used to think about changes as going from 4 detectors to 16 to 64 to 128. But I think those are actually, in the scheme of things, actually very small changes. I promise you this year at RSNA, there will be better scanners than there were last year, and there'll be different colors than there were last year, and it's the latest and greatest, and there'll be lower dose, and all things that are important. But that perhaps is only a very small part of the challenge of radiology. And so I wanted to speak with Marty just about, the issues of radiology. We're not going to talk about reading scans. That's my job. And we have to read more scans in a short period of time. But I wanted to know, over your time in radiology, what do you see as the biggest, seismic changes? What's really changed in how we practice?
So the biggest change in managing a practice actually has been the size of the practice, and I think a national consolidation of groups into much, much larger groups. So here at Hopkins, we now have 100 radiologists reading 1 million studies. It's a mix of academic radiologists, community-based radiologists. Those are different cultures. We're trying to figure out how you marry those things. We've been pretty successful with a common IT infrastructure to move those images around. But I think the size and the complexity has changed. When I started, we had about 50 radiologists, so we've probably doubled the group practice size. That's been the biggest change. One of the most remarkable changes, I think, is what hasn't changed is the workflow that you deal with of pulling up an image. Now you use voice recognition to do your report, so that's changed, but that's almost 20 years ago now. But the radiologist workflow has changed surprisingly little in all that time. And it's the most expensive part of the process after the equipment. So that's the one that I think is going to present the biggest challenge for the next few years.
Right, and I would say that from a radiologist perspective, it's actually, the fact you mentioned it hasn't changed, that's a really negative thing.
Right.
And I would say, we could talk about great technology, but it's unbelievable. I mean, basically the PACS systems that we have, I would say if you were thinking about this as how you get online, how we're doing this lecture, doing Facebook Live, you and I are here. Well, I think the way radiology is basically AOL dial-up, right? Where hopefully you got online, it was really slow, and it was, if you speak to somebody at AOL.com, that's in the 80s. I think we are in the 80s.
Yeah, I think so too.
What do you think we need to do? I mean, with all these changes, you're right, and we're a big group now. We're 100, but actually we're a small group. I was speaking at Baptist Hospital last week at their ER meeting. It was a great meeting. And Baptist in Florida, Miami, they just got taken over by another group. And they were about 50, 60 people, I think. They got taken over by the group that owns VRAD. So now they're like 800 radiologists. Yeah. So we're like a rounding error.
Right.
So it's this massive consolidation. What it means, I guess, is it going to make things better? I'm not sure. It's not I have to admit, it may be not exactly a quality push, perhaps getting more. But what do you see? What do you think, if you had to pick a couple challenges? What do we need to do to make things better? What's our problems?
Well, I think a couple of things could change. One has to do with upgrading the AOL account to something else. I would guess you're reading in a typical day 50% normal exams. We don't need an academic radiologist reading normal exams. So
we don't have many normals. It's more like 5% normal.
A community rating.
50% only abnormal and 50% really abnormal.
Yeah. But a community radiologist even reads more than that. So the IT should be able to sort out the case that can go to the community radiologist and the case that needs to go to the academic, the subspecialty radiologist. If that could happen, it really would leverage the expertise of a place like this. The other thing that could happen is there are places that are experimenting with changing the workflow. So the radiologist is sitting there just inserting the positive findings in the exam, and somebody else does everything else, handles the phone calls, does the QC on the images, gets the referring physician on the phone. Somebody else is dictating into a standard format the negative findings. So you really maximize the throughput of the radiologist and their expertise. So there are people starting to play with that, and I think the cost and the economics will demand that.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's no doubt. Here one of the problems we have is we've cut back on staffing. We used to have aides in every reading room. Now we have nobody. So basically, I'm the aide.
Yeah.
I like to work with a technologist. So if the techs have questions, I think why we're so successful is because we answer the phone and we speak to the techs, and we're working as a team together. So I would never want to give that up, but I don't need to be the one dialing 12 numbers to get someone on the phone. I mean, that just seems like a crazy thing. Or
it is a crazy thing.
I mean, when the time to speak to the doctor, I should be on the phone. I mean, that's why, we're radiologists and we get paid for what we do to be consultants, but you don't need me, signing consent and doing all these other crazy things. But I think, and kind of what you said is, I think one of the things, since I've dealt with companies over the years, I've always said that, we needed Apple, or we needed Facebook, or we needed Google, or we needed, not in sense, NVIDIA in some sense, those companies to get into radiology, to get into medicine, because the Epics of the world, the Carestreams of the world, the Agfas of the world, let me see how many people I can insult. I can name more if I could remember them. The Imagians, the IBMs, all those people, they just don't get it. I mean, they're basically, living 2 wars ago.
Yeah, we need some fresh ideas from outside the business. I agree.
Yeah, and it's not even fresh. It's fresh ideas, but it's not even anything. We it's kind of like us. The way I look at it is, when you go to a store now, I mean, you deal with Amazon. We've always made these comments. Amazon, once you shop at Amazon, it remembers you. You don't type in your things over and over. Here, the PACS doesn't remember anything. You can't set up the PACS the way you want. It doesn't do anything, and then it forgets it. Then it breaks down.
Yeah.
One of the big institutions, I won't mention what PACS they have, but at Stanford, right now the PACS is so bad, they may pull the PACS system out and go back to their OG system, that's how bad things are. So I think that's a big thing. In terms of, patient care and radiologist satisfaction and stuff, I mean, what do you see the challenges there? I mean, this idea about doing more and more. I think, remember when we both, in the beginning, we did CT 5 days a week, 7:30 to 5. Now we're doing 24/7. We have to cover, then we talk about people, new generational things, people wanting to have much more fixed times and things. How do you see that as a challenge, and realizing there is a cost structure that we can't just hire more and more people?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, because one of the things that you do and some of your colleagues do, we do it a lot in mammography, is a patient consultation where you review images with them, and you really don't get paid to do that. But it is, in a consumer-driven economy, that's a really popular feature that we're going to have to figure out the economics of how to respond to that, because people want to talk to the doctor who's making their diagnosis. You get that reaction probably daily. You have one of those conferences.
Right, but then you get down to the practical thing is, if someone's paying you $12 to read a study, it's really hard to, you can't do it. I think, we see our surgical colleagues. I mean, I meet with the surgeons, many times a day, and you have very senior surgeons, and they're walking around with their PAs, who are absolutely incredibly talented people, know those patients. They're unbelievable, shockingly unbelievable. But flip back 10 years, the surgeon was walking around with the chief resident. Now the chief resident's in the OR with the patients because there's not enough time and hours and everything else. And so they don't get the experience they need. The PAs are good, but now the PAs are dealing with the patients, which is, realistically, a PA is a lot cheaper than a physician, surely a surgeon or even a radiologist. So maybe we just can't, you can't do what you can't do. I mean, the thing that we do best as a radiologist, and only we could do, is read the films.
Right.
Now, in some ways, you can say that's a little bit boring too, just reading the films. I mean, you want to have this interaction, and people talk about value over volume, which sounds really good, but I mean, you're the one who does the books. I don't know what column you have value, but I know when you add all those values up at the bottom, it ends up being zero when the hospital looks at our budget, right?
Right.
Everyone waves their hand that yes, we need to be patient friendly and all this and all that. But they also look at, then they add up all the dollars and how much you got and how much you spent, and those things don't look good.
It doesn't matter so much in this academic environment. It really, the value, though, really does matter in our freestanding business, where we've been competitively incredibly successful by, I think, better customer service, more radiology consultation, access to the radiologist, high-end equipment like we have at the medical center. We really have developed quite a competitive advantage where there's a real marketplace, a competitive marketplace. It's not exactly true at an academic medical center in radiology, where it's kind of captive.
I think part of it is, one thing that never made any sense to me is the fact that, whether you do scanning on a dual source scanner, doing all the 3Ds, or doing it on a 4-slice, you get paid the same. I mean, I understand the hamburger's a hamburger, but if you go to McDonald's, a hamburger is probably, I don't eat at McDonald's, but I keep kosher, but it's like 99 cents. But if you go to a nice restaurant, you may be paying $35, and they're both hamburgers, they came from a cow. You can argue, but the fact that we get paid no more for doing more, I mean, there's no business in the world that does that. And I think that's the challenge, is the reimbursement is unrealistic. It's some number, you fill out a form and you get a number, and the fact is that I get paid the same as somebody who's a week out of their residency. There's no business also where, when you're running Apple, you're a senior executive, a senior person, executive, whatever, you're not getting paid as the guy who started, 2 weeks out. So medicine's a crazy business.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes actually from you is that our reimbursement now, today is the good old days. It's only going one direction.
Right, and that's a problem. I think, it's, I'll get in trouble for this, but I'll just report the facts that if you, there's one company I won't mention by name, they advertise in the journals and on Amini and stuff, and they say, you got to send your patients to us because last weekend we read every study within 22 seconds, and this, that, and the other, and there's nothing about how accurate. They're not saying they're 99.7% accurate. I'm a little sketchy about that. I said, I'm really good. I ain't 99.7% accurate. If you say you're 99% accurate, unless Moses is reading your scans and God's the second reader, you ain't 99.7% anything.
Yeah, and I would also guess that nobody really cares about the 99.7. They care about the 0.3. Yeah,
well, but it's also to say 99.7 seems to be a little bit like, give me a break.
Yeah.
But I just so what do you think we could do differently? I mean, we always speak about this. We do retreats. We kind of look at our budgets. We look at people.
Well, let me ask you, what percent of your, so if you're in a reading room, what percent of the time are you spending on activities that are not value added to drive to a diagnosis that's useful to a referring physician? How much transactional stuff?
Well, I mean, you transact a little bit with the computer because it's really slow. So you waste a lot of time with that. And you do answer the phone. I'm making phone calls. You're doing things. So you're probably doing 10, 15% of your time doing annoying things that really take no value and just waste your time and distract you, perhaps. That part's true. And I'm pretty focused on doing things, but you are wasting a reasonable amount of time there. But I think also just the whole process of how we read films and the fact we don't really have the tools we need. I think, we read pretty fast, but I think, if you had more tools available, you might be more satisfied in how you read the studies. Particularly you're looking at value over volume. Can you provide more value to referring docs? I mean, I think we pride ourselves on doing both value and volume.
Do you read more volume today per hour than you did 20 years ago?
Yeah, well, if I read not by choice, yeah, no, but I do. I would say now I read more. I mean, how much money I make. I don't get the money, but no, but I would say now you're reading more than ever. You're reading more slices, you're reading more patients, you're reading more scans, you're reporting, because our volumes keep going up. And the staffing model, we don't increase staff with the volume necessarily, because if we were getting paid like we were getting paid 20 years ago for every CT, they'd have to come with a Wells Fargo truck every day to take the money. But every time we look and say, oh my God, our revenue is the same as last year, but our volume's went up 7%. And so like we say, it's the good old days. Every time you're getting paid less and less, and so your solution is to do more and more. Now, I think the problem is with most groups, including ourselves, you can't do more.
Right.
Or your error rate goes up, or your satisfaction goes down. I think that's the challenge. But the question is, what is it you could do? I mean, so like from the administrative perspective, it can't go on the way it is, right? Things need to change. I mean, but where do you see those? Like, so we're talking about RSNA. Do you think that you're going to see anything? You'll be in RSNA for 4 or 5 days. Do you think you're going to see anything there that's going to say, oh my God, what geniuses? Someone came up with something.
Yeah, I don't think I'll see it at RSNA. I have seen practice models, though, where they have gotten rid of your 10 or 15% of non-value added work. They claim, there are practices that claim to have boosted radiologist productivity 50 to 70%. I think it could be done. I'm not sure every radiologist wants to really work that way and grind it out at that pace, but I think to sustain salaries and a declining reimbursement, we're going to have to figure how to get rid of all the junk that you don't want to do.
Yeah, but it's also then the problem is, we know this model, not to mention, but the really good model for reading films is to be in a reading area 3 blocks away from the scanner and never be disturbed and never answer the phone.
Yeah.
Just pull the phone out, don't answer it, don't tell anybody the number. But that's not really good patient care. I mean, we're at the scanner, so we get bothered by the text. To me, if I didn't get bothered by the text, that would bother me.
Yeah.
The fact that they bother me, I mean, bothering is a very positive thing. And the texts do better because they know you're there. The texts don't want to know that, they feel part of something big. When radiologists are 3 blocks away or they're sitting home in their pajamas, that's teleradiology.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fine, 3 in the morning, but they're doing, in many places now, we're doing teleradiology in the daytime because the scanners are here, the techs are here, and the radiologist is somewhere else. That's incredibly efficient, because the most inefficient thing I do is when Dr. Cameron comes to see me every day and I go over 10 cases. And it takes me half an hour to go over the cases. It's very efficient for him and it's very good for him, but theoretically I don't get paid. Now maybe I'm the rainmaker because he refers us more patients and we've always built, but I think the thing we do well and what the patient wants, if you're the patient, you want me to speak to Dr. Cameron. You don't want him looking at someone's dictated report.
Right.
If he's going to go inside of you, you want to make sure he knows what he's going to find. And so it's a very fine line. Now, I don't see a day, I mean, people talk about it, well, we should get paid for consultation. I think both of us would agree that's never going to happen. That's not going to happen. So how do you manage? I think that's, and like I said, you have to balance the books at the end of the day. We have a new chair, right? But she ain't giving me more faculty, I asked, she said no. It's amazing when you go from the radiologist to the chair, you forget how it.
Yeah.
But it's a budget thing, right? Every radiologist costs a lot of money.
Yep.
And it's not easy.
I think some of the rest of the answer is diversifying the revenue stream. So running a radiology practice, just relying on what you bring in from interpretation fees gets harder and harder and harder. So building other businesses like our chain of imaging centers where we can take advantage of some of the technical side of the revenue to support some of the inefficiencies, we call them, or the consultations or the quality things that you do. I think that's the only way to get there is additional income streams.
Right, but it's still, Right, but it's still within the radiology mode. We're not like opening restaurants or something.
Right.
Ice cream stands.
No, we would be a disaster.
We thought of that, but that's really usually when I think that.
I would not eat your cooking.
No, I was an excellent waiter and a busboy. When I was in the Catskills, I was really good. So in case you ever open a restaurant at Hopkins and they need help,
it's good you have a fallback.
I got a fallback position. I always was looking forward to that. At Hopkins, we used to almost every year at Christmas time have a strike by the employees.
Yeah.
So I was always volunteer to cook pizza. I don't know how, but it looked like something I probably could do, or at least I would do something.
That was a real motivator for the negotiators to close the deal with the union to have you not cook.
When I thought that the CT people, we had B and everybody else, we'd take over the cafeteria. We'd go bankrupt because instead of putting this much cheese on, we put a lot of cheese on.
Yeah.
They'd be losing money on each pizza. So that was negotiating. But all right, so we're actually out of time. So just Marty, any last thoughts about when you're speaking, we have a lot of texts online, a lot of people. You see here, look, do you feel that RAs would help fill some of the roles?
We actually hired an RA to help with some of our fluoro stuff. I think it's working pretty well.
Right, it's working well. But I think, it's really, we're constantly looking at, you're constantly looking at the business model. It's just a challenge to figure out, then also to keep technologists happy, nurses. So it's not just keeping the physicians happy. We have a problem like paying the techs, right?
Yeah.
So it's a real challenge. So we have people listening to the same problems from Peru and New York and every place else. So I think it's probably universal, the challenges.
Absolutely. The international consulting I've done, everybody's facing all the same challenges. It really is a worldwide. It's not just a domestic challenge.
Well, hopefully, I guess, maybe NVIDIA with us, we'll do the deep learning, and then we don't need the radiologist. So, and maybe it'll be like Star Trek where you just put one of those little clickers in front of somebody and the transponders.
Does that mean you'll be in my office all day, every day?
No, I'm going to be running the transponders.
Oh, okay.
So we're trying to be the ones that put everybody out of business. That'll be my goal. Before people write nasty notes, it's not going to happen. I think we'll talk about deep learning, and we have a different time, but I think deep learning is the greatest thing for radiology because it'll make us only better. Then maybe we'll be 99.7%.
Yeah, maybe.
And those guys will be 105% because that's how good they'll be. So much better. They'll even be better than 100%.
They make the diagnosis before they look at the image.
That's right. They won't even have to look at the image. And they'll know what you're going to get 10 years from now. Anyway, thanks very much, Marty, for dropping by.
You.
And everybody back to work so you don't be wasting time and not making RVUs. See you later.
So long.
Bye.